Welcome back again, everyone. Thanks a lot for coming back. Part 2 of the shingles plant, and well, I want to get right to it. It was kind of mentioned that I might ramble a little bit on one of my previous videos, so I'm going to try and streamline things a little bit. I know I do tend to ramble. So by talking about rambling, though, I'm rambling. Oh well. Anyway, so before I get to the next stage, so the first backdrop building is done, and I posted in the last video. I made the comment that I wasn't sure if Wisconsin Central serviced a shingles plant at all, and lo and behold, YouTube user Dan Blink commented that he believes that Wisconsin Central actually serviced a 3M shingles plant up in Wausau, Wisconsin. For those of you not familiar with Wisconsin, Wausau is a little bit north of center, we'll say. It's not quite as far north as, say, Minocqua, St. Germain, Eagle River. For those of you snowmobilers out there, those are the snowmobiling capitals of Wisconsin. Some great trails. Well, I'm rambling again. Anyway, Wausau is a little bit south of those, but it's a large paper producing area, Wausau paper. But they also have, and sure enough, I did some quick Google search, and sure enough, the plant is still there, still serviced by CN as far as I can tell. So I did a street view of it and a Google satellite view of it, and got some great research just in being able to do that, and the infrastructure of the entire plant. It actually kind of gave me some new ideas. Instead of the propane tanks, there looks like there is a asphalt unloading section, and the neat thing is to Dan's comment, he believes that most of the shingles were trucked out. They weren't shipped out, but we'll take some modeler's license here and say that they were shipped out by boxcar. And so then, but the good news is that it gave me one color scheme, and so my brick building that I made, there is a brick building at the 3M plant. However, it looks like it's more like offices and front office kind of stuff, not actually part of the plant. But again, since I'm going to model it as if it was shipping by rail, we'll say that that's part of the plant in there. But the neat thing is that there is a warehouse structure, and it's made out of corrugated siding, just like I was planning on doing, and it's a white building, so kind of gives me an idea. I don't need to guess at the paint scheme there. There are several structures, and what's neat is I have some I don't want to call them smokestacks, but I have some smokestacks from the Walther's paper plant, and I never used them since I didn't actually make a paper plant. But now I have a purpose, because in this plant, in the Google images, you can see that there's several smokestacks. Now I don't know what they're rendering exactly. I don't know if that has to do with maybe the asphalt process of heating it, or they must be doing something with it. But there's several smokestacks, so I can integrate those. And then there's several. The receiving area, I think I'm going to have to do a pretty major kit bash actually of the Medusa cement plant that I have, but I'm going to go for video 3 on that. Today I'm just going to start working on the corrugated building, whatever that part of the building is. Maybe that's final assembly, packaging, getting ready for shipment type of thing. So that's what I'm going to make. It looks like I can make it quite a large structure. The one that they showed looks probably about a half of a city block long. Unfortunately, the plant won't lay out the same as the real structure, and the real structure is serviced by quite a few tracks. There's tracks for tank cars, there's tracks for the granules and aggregate cars. A lot of them embedded in concrete, but in this case we'll take some modeler's license. So. Alright, but we'll flip over to the workbench here, and I've got some rough dimensions already, so I'm going to start cutting some styrene and just getting the basic structure. It's going to be pretty simple, nothing fancy to it. When you do the Google Maps on it and you do a street view, there's really nothing on the street side of this building. There's really maybe a couple of doors, you know, nothing a whole lot to it. But that's okay. It'll go together quickly, and we'll move on to the what I think will be the more complicated part, which will be the aggregate receiving area. So, all right, to the workbench. Well, amazingly, this is actually all the styrene that I have left from those 2 huge sheets that I bought. I don't recall if they were 4x8 sheets or what they were, but I know they are quite large, and this is actually all I've got left. So, as I mentioned in the previous video, I'm going to be working with Plastrux corrugated siding this time, and that's a little bit thinner material. It really can't stand alone. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is make a backup or a background blanking here. Basically, I'm going to make a structure out of the sheet styrene, and then I'll cover it with the actual corrugated siding. Now, the good thing here is that this is going to serve 2 purposes. One, I want to have a concrete base to the structure. Most of the time when you see a corrugated building, it's either on a cinder block or a poured concrete foundation, and then you've got the corrugated portion that's, you know, probably got a steel underframe, and then the siding put on the side of it. So that's going to work out really well, because what I'll do is I'll just make this sheet the full height and then just side it as tall as I need to. Okay, so I'm going to make the structure 6 inches tall, which using my scale ruler works out to about 40 feet tall, so about a 3-story building. That seems a little big. Maybe I'm going to shrink that down a little bit. I don't know that a corrugated structure needs to be 3 stories tall, but so maybe we'll make it like 35 feet, somewhere in there, with you know, probably like a foot or so, or not a foot, an inch. So that'll work out to about, yeah, we're going to shrink that a little bit too. I think we only want to make that concrete footing maybe about like 6 inches, and then have siding on the rest of it. But then it's going to be 24 inches long, and then I actually have it on an angle, but that'll unfold as I start cutting. So I'm going to measure, cut, and then we'll flip over when I'm ready. Well, this is the Plastrux siding that I was talking about. As you can see, it's styrene, but it's pretty thin. So here's the main wall of the structure, and being 24 inches long, it's going to need a lot of bracing once it's all assembled. So here's a 3-inch piece. I decided I've got an extra access door, or just I'm going to just call this like a utility door for getting equipment in and out of the building. So I'll put that on the short edge, and then I've got a couple doors here from leftover from, I think, I'm not sure where, but they're left over from something. The other thing I might try and do is work in just some vents up along the top here, just some square vents, things like that. And again, maybe I'll reference the Google video and see what they've got. But so basically, I'm just going to take the siding and figure out how tall I want the foundation to be, and then I'll start cutting these to length. Looking at them, I might actually be short siding here, so I might be in trouble. I might end up being run into the hobby shop here soon, and hopefully have enough to finish this off. So that's the next steps here. So the nice thing about this Plastrux sheet, being that it's so thin, I was actually able to just cut it with a nice pair of scissors. It takes some of the work out of it. I don't have to keep scoring and then snap. But I think honestly either way you're going to be okay, but use a pair of scissors if I can. One of the things I'm finding, normally what I use is this, and I've talked about it before, but it's this Micromark same stuff. It's the plastic welder, and the problem here is that it's not adhering well. I mean, these are all styrene pieces, which you'd think would be no problem, but however, with the corrugated, with this Plastrux corrugated, unlike the evergreen styrene that has one smooth surface on the back, this is corrugated on both sides. And so the problem here is that there isn't enough surface area to really get a good grab, and this is such a large area that it's hard to spread this stuff out. It evaporates so quickly that it kind of leaves you, well, it's just been really hard to apply. So instead, what I think I'm going to revert to is actually some of my Gorilla Glue, and it's a little bit more, it's thicker, and I think it'll adhere better. So I'm going to go ahead and give that a shot. So the one downside to painting these white is I can't tell which side I painted anymore. I think I can kind of tell, so I might take a stab in the dark here a little bit and try and figure out which side I painted, which side I didn't. But anyway, so you can see here, I'm just going to go ahead and apply this, and so then that'll give this kind of the concrete foundation look, and then I have the openings for the doorways here. So now that I've got everything spray painted, I'm going to come back and just use my kind of, I don't want to call it a stippling technique, but use the sponge to paint the door and the what will become vents, and apply those on the side here. So I'm going to go ahead and glue those in place and move on to the next step. Well, jumping ahead here a little bit, I can show you I've got the doors glued in place, the siding glued in place, and I ended up just using the super glue, as I said. And then I decided to go with something a little bit different for the kind of quote-unquote vents. This is just siding left over from the grain elevator project that I had, and I figured that looked a little bit better, a little bit smaller. So those fit just to kind of create vents, and then you can see on this end I've got the access door in place. So now what I'm going ahead and doing here is I was just going to give a real light coat. So this is just some, I'm not even sure what grit sandpaper this is. 100 grit maybe? I'm not sure if that's what the P100 is. Anyway, it's just some sandpaper that I've got. So I've got a water mixture, and then this is the paint that I used to paint the riverbed back in the on the river project. So I thought I'd just dilute some of this and then just give a wash over this just to get rid of the purple hint, the purple hue on here. And then once this is dry, I'll glue this in place onto the roof line of the building itself. So it seems like every time I put away my aluminum here, I always find another use for it. So what I thought I'd do is I've got some leftover pieces, I don't know, from some kit that I had. I think it's from the Magic Pan Bakery. But I've got these roof vents, so I thought I'd just, go ahead and do the stippling effect with aluminum again. And I also had this ductwork. I think this came with what was originally the power plant, and then I just turned into the quad graphics plant. But I thought I'd give this see what happens if I stipple this, and might apply it to the roof just as ventilation of some kind. And I figure I can hide this up against the backdrop so it can just kind of end against the backdrop. And we'll see how that turns out. Well, here it is. Nothing special, really. I mean, it's just a low relief structure. I'll probably come back at some point and weather. Being white, it's going to be difficult to weather this without using an airbrush. So I think the next time I fire up the airbrush, I might just put a coat of just a little bit of streaking down the side. Even well-kept buildings are going to have some dirt and whatnot. So you can see I just went ahead and applied the some roof detail, just some venting up on the top here, and then this turned out pretty well actually. So I just glued it in place. I ended up cutting this side of it here. Make sure that's showing up on camera here. But I ended up cutting this part to fit, and so it angles up against the backdrop. In the future, if I could get a backdrop that looks, kind of extends this building, that would be kind of nice. So kind of in the future type thing. So let's take it over to the layout, and I'll put it in place and give you guys an idea of what we're looking at. So here's the building kind of in place. I've got some backdrop to finish obviously on the left side there, But I'll do that once I have the rest of the structure complete and have an idea of what's going to go in there. And then obviously I've got to work in the scenery in the foreground there. And then I think I'm going to try and figure out how to tie these two buildings together. Unfortunately, right now I think they could be individual industries. There's nothing really tying them together. So I might create just a enclosed walkway between the two, or even if it's just piping or something like that, just to show that the two buildings are one and the same company, and somehow, like I said, tying everything together. So that's the structure in place. And like I said, got some scenery work to finish there, but we'll get to that as we wrap up the entire plant scene. Well, that wraps up building 2 of the shingles plant. I'm thinking this will probably be at least a 3-part, maybe 4-part. This second part, or the third part I should say, of this structure, I'm hoping to get a little bit more detailed. After referencing the real plant up in Wausau, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I got a lot of neat ideas, and it's kind of opening things up a little bit as to what this third structure is going to be. And I think there's a lot more in terms of like storage tanks and piping, cooling towers, and exhaust stacks, things like that. So I've got a bin full of scrap stuff that I've been kind of holding on to, and I think I can finally utilize some of it. So that'll be fun, just to kind of kit bash and see what we can all fit into it. So I apologize now. It's been quite a while since I've gotten my last video up. I know what you're thinking. The racing season's over. It's cold. It's dreary. What's the new excuse? Well, my eldest daughter, got into basketball, and I volunteered to help coach her team. And so we've got practice 2 nights a week, games on the weekends, and suddenly, what free time I had is being chewed up by that. But I'm not going to lie, I'm enjoying it. Played basketball as a kid growing up and through high school and stuff like that. So it's fun to be back out there and watching her grow and become a better basketball player. So that's been a lot of fun. Unfortunately, it has taken me out of the basement, so my updates have been a little bit limited. But going to keep hopefully shooting. I got the holidays coming up. Hopefully I'll have some time. But like I said, I'm really enthused about this project. I'm really excited now that I've got a real-life reference to work from as well. So greatly appreciated on that tip. So as always, thanks a lot for sticking with me. Thanks for the subscriptions. To everybody who's here, thanks a lot for checking me out. Hopefully you'll click subscribe and keep coming back. So if I don't post before Christmas, which I hope to, but in case I don't, I hope everyone has a Merry Christmas or a Happy Hanukkah or a Happy Kwanzaa, or just has a good Christmas holiday season, whether it's denominational or non-denominational, whatever it might be. I hope you guys have a great holiday season and a Happy New Year. I hope I can shoot again before then, but in case I don't, have a great season, and we'll see you in the next video.